Welcome back to the 7th grade mustache. On today's episode, we're speaking about the Marshmallow Mafia. Before we get to that, Kevin Samuels passed away recently. This guy was known for speaking his mind, giving people advice. He also had a lot of detractors, people who didn't care for his point of view. These people would often call in and attempt to argue. If you don't like what he's saying, don't engage. But people, they can't. They cannot keep their composure, and they engage, and they become these keyboard commandos, and they start leaving all these nasty comments and this and that. One thing I see a lot is when people describe themselves, they always state how much they make. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares how much money you have. That's part of the problem right there. Like when you read some of these comments on his IG live or, TikTok or YouTube, I'm a humble six-figure, blah, blah. Humble and six-figure. Why is that in the same sentence? Why are you starting with how much money you make? Bitch, you ain't humble.
Look. First off, how come ain't nobody admitting they only make $23,000 a year, $12,000 a year? Somebody lying.
All these black thousandaires. I'm like, yo, that should be like Tulsa's in every city.
Look. I'm not saying you're a liar. I'm saying if all these black folks were making over $106,000 a year.
No. What it was. These motherfuckers was making $17,500 before coronavirus, and then they got them unemployment checks, and then it was $100,000, $150,000.
Yeah, there's a dollar minuet.
But check this out. People have asked me, what do I think about this guy? I don't have any problem with him. I had no problem with what he was saying. The problem is that people are butthurt, and they want other people to be accountable for their feelings. Baby, this is the world. You should have learned this before you left home, that you're responsible for yourself and your feelings.
The old black people have this saying, it's called a hit dog will holler. What that means is if you throw a rock and somebody responds to it, that's because you hit them. If this motherfucker's talking about people not living up to their potential, if this motherfucker's going hard on these single women, this motherfucker's going hard on these deadbeat men, then that must mean that either in some way you identify with that. If you didn't identify with it, we wouldn't be here. Now, the other thing that my brother said that's so important is don't engage. Like, this is something I had a problem with. Like, I'm strolling through Facebook, and people say something, I got to engage. And I caught myself like, nah, man, you ain't got to engage. But that's our desire for celebrity, our desire to be heard sometimes outweighs the actual message itself. If you got a real message to deliver, then
Dude, do you know how many tweets I have deleted before I send them? Man, Listen, I'll be scrolling through shit and I'll see some sheer stupidity. And I'm like, I cannot stand for this. And then I stop halfway through typing that message. And then I just delete the whole fucking thing because I'm like, I don't know this person. I don't give a shit about this person. Look, Why should I even comment on this? Fuck this. I got more shit to do with my time. I close that shit. I'm like, you know what? Too much screen time for the day. Done.
Oh, that's deep. You just displayed discipline. You caught yourself like, hey, I almost got into a wrestling match with a motherfucker that I don't even know. Look, I said this on a past podcast, so I don't want to revisit it too much, but there was this chick okay, tell me why socialism doesn't work. She was being facetious. So I engaged her. Now, the crazy thing was she kept saying that I'm misogynistic and all this other stuff, but it was these young brothers that was talking to me, and they hit me in my inbox, and we talked back and forth. So I'm like, shout out to the 2 or 3 of these young brothers that actually have read some stuff. They're like, okay, what about this? I'm like, what about that? And we went back and forth. But the chick, once I didn't agree with her, her job was to insult me. Her job was to say that I was misogynistic. Her job, okay, what does that have to do with your argument?
It's like watching a UFC fight when somebody's loading up. She was already loaded up, just waiting to unleash some stuff, okay? She was baiting you or anybody else that would engage because she had this Betty Crocker Insta-bake argument ready to go.
And there was no more discussing. And like I said, it was the brothers that hit me in my inbox that actually talked to me. I was impressed. I'm like, look, hey, I just told them I'm impressed with y'all, bro. Look, obviously y'all wasn't trying to get no pussy. Y'all trying to have a real conversation and change my point of view. You'll come past this, or you'll fix it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that my point of view is different than yours. But what we're saying is that that's the same thing that Kevin Samuels' situation is. You got all these people that want to prove something to him, number one. Number two, the whole thing about the 6 figures. That's their idea of a lot of money. So they want to sit here and say, well, I make a lot of money and I don't do that. That's what they're saying. They're trying to say, well, you can be you can have a lot of money and be ghetto is what they're really saying. And I agree. You can be rich and still be ghetto. Don't let nobody change that shit. Look at the Kardashians. You can be rich and still be a hoe. Their mama raised them to be hoes.
But
So
you
that's
know what
what
I
they
hear a
are.
lot of these people say, like when they comment on this shit or they have something to say. None of them say they're business owners.
Nah. So they got. That's why I said they got to be lying. Uh, Look, what business are you in? Brag, hey, this is your chance to put your business out there and get some likes, get some business. Like, hey, you know what? I own a consulting firm. I do home
Yeah, but
decorating.
listen. How about your occupation doesn't matter? Because the whole reason that you're engaging with this guy is because you have some problem, whether it's yours or somebody else's or your problem with him, but you want to break down and like psychoanalyze the situation. But people feel the need to tell you how much they make because they feel that gives them leverage. Hey, dummy, guess what? I can break you down no matter how much money you make. Like, it makes no difference. Like,
It
just
doesn't make you valid
completely
because you make a lot of money.
assassinate your character without you having to earn 100 grand or $100 a month. It doesn't matter.
Look, here's an example. And again, I'm not trying to strike anybody down. I'm just trying to give you an example. Look at all these young rappers that get all these shitty contracts. And yeah, they're all millionaires. And some of them are actually smart, smart enough to try to invest their money. But they ain't talk. How come they ain't rapping like Public Enemy? How come you ain't got Dead Prez? How come you ain't got more David Banners? How come you ain't got man? We had Poor Righteous Teachers. We had Def Jeff. We had all these Intelligent Hoodlum. We had all these different rappers back then that was X Clan talking about real issues. Uplifting our people. The reason I'm so black today is because people like KRS-One. Where them niggas at? And I'm not talking about the ones that are my age who are 46. I'm talking about where the 17, 18, 19, 20. Because when we was rapping, when me and Roscoe was rapping and doing lyrics and DJing, we were 17, 18. We were 16, 17, 18, 15, 16, 17, 18. And so we were talking about those exact same things. So you could have a lot of money and still be a shithead, as you would put it, my brother. You could have a lot of money and still not understand how the world works. Mike Tyson tells you over and over, a lot of money doesn't make you happy. I saw Mike Tyson arguing with it was Kenan, it was Kel, the fat one, and he had a homeboy on there. They're talking about their podcast and their business, and the homeboy's like, going back and forth with Mike, and Mike kind of got, like I ain't gonna put him on my best friend's dad has $5 million, and he's happy at this, that, and that, and like you can tell a motherfucker that don't get pussy on a regular basis. You can tell a motherfucker that's not a full man yet, and like I said, this goes back to what we said 3 podcasts ago when you're talking about the nerds, the losers have taken over. The weird ones, have taken over. And so they're so quick to want to prove you wrong. And it doesn't take, or a lot of money does do this or whatever. And I'm like, Mike is telling you from experience. Mike is explaining not just a regular point of view, but there's a reason all these people look up to Mike Tyson. It's because this motherfucker's experienced some shit. He had $300 million.
Why would you even argue with a dude like that when he no, but see, here's the thing though, like that guy actually has legit life experience to impart on people.
Yes.
And you keep comparing him to somebody that hasn't had lived a tenth of a life that he has. So just how about you just shut the fuck up and listen and be grateful?
That you're even in his company. Look, there's an old saying that when an old man dies, a library burns to the ground. They're talking about that knowledge is lost. So this motherfucker is nice enough to try like share some knowledge with you. And the crazy part, like when Rogan talks about fighting with Tyson, Rogan was one of the few people to quantitate. It takes a considerable amount of intelligence to anticipate what somebody's going to do and counter that. And he's like, these guys have
He's
plans.
talking about fight IQ. He's one of the first people that began to actually categorize fight IQ. Yeah. So I'll give him credit for that. Yeah.
Like I said, he's not the first to ever talk
no.
But he's the first to
he put it into no. But see, it was esoteric before.
Yeah,
but Joe Rogan was the first person that made it concrete. Like, this is how these people see this, and this is how they communicate their knowledge.
See, when it comes to boxing and fighting, those different sports, that's like a secret society. So a lot of the stuff that people talk about in those, you got to be initiated. When Richard Pryor used to talk about, I used to box, he was talking about some real shit. And so anybody who ever fought and got in the ring understood what he was saying. That's what made his jokes so funny, because they were actually very relatable. And he's like, yeah, if you ever fought, yeah, shit. He said my legs was good.
Well, it's because when he talks about fighting, you can take him at his word.
Yes, and that's what's so
Okay, but
important.
see, but here's the thing though. Kevin Samuels, he held people accountable.
He's doing the same thing. He's talking
So
about
when a person
yeah,
no, but see, here's the thing though. He would do the opposite. So when a person would say something, he was like, "Well, hold on. You just told me XYZ at the beginning, but then the further
but
we get into this conversation, you're revealing that you're a fraud."
you're displaying something else. Look, there's rumors about how Kevin Samuels died. I don't know. But here's the bottom line: what you need to understand is that he was talking about some things that nobody wants to address. And right now, we're more in this society is even worse that we're more worried about our feelings than our reality. And you hear me talk about it all the time. So he's talking about he said, look, your feelings are hurt, fine. What's your reality, and how do we fix your reality? You know, when I talk to my kids about how to, I live in Omaha, how to fix Omaha. How you fix Omaha is you don't get a bunch of grants and you rebuild buildings. No, you got to rebuild people. Bring these jobs that pay $25 to $35 an hour in North Omaha will be fixed. Bring me 300, bring me 500 jobs that pay that. Then you will start fixing the problem. But if you get a grant and you fix up
Okay,
buildings,
hold on. Before we get diverted into gentrification, the thing
no,
is, the
I'm
thing
talking about the
about
people.
listen, look. This the problem that Omaha's black community has is the same thing that black communities around the world have.
They deal with yes.
When we don't invest our money where we live, then the neighborhood suffers. And
Period.
and I don't give a shit if it's a person who works at a factory there or if it's a person who became a celebrity and moved away. You have to take that money that you made and put it back where you live. I mean, dude, black people keep doing this shit over and over and over. What we do is we get so obsessed with materialism.
With making it, you know,
But
the,
see, but here's the thing though. We get so obsessed with materialism, the vehicle that takes you along the road of life, they get so obsessed with how you look as you progress through life, as opposed to the milestones headed toward the
mm,
destination. So what I'm saying is everybody gets so focused on looking good, on having a nice car, instead of owning the property that you live in. You know what I'm saying? And, look, E40 says this perfectly. He says, don't buy a $50,000 car before you buy a house. And so what I'm getting at is things I see when I'm in Chicago, things I see when I'm in Los Angeles, things I see when I'm in New Jersey, Atlanta. It's the same. It's people
the same
living
mistakes are being made in
people
different
living
places.
beyond their means. They're driving a BMW and they live in a fucking apartment and they don't own anything. They got all their credit cards maxed out. The problem is nobody is everybody wants to be rich, but nobody wants to work at being wealthy. And the transference of wealth, because it's the transference of wealth, which is actually how Atlanta was built up. I'm talking about the black part of Atlanta was built up
Yeah, yeah.
because you have these businesses and these banks and all these establishments that create the foundation of the city that I live in, and
Look,
a lot of that was transferred through generational wealth once it was established.
one of the best lines you ever hear in a movie is in Tombstone. Remember when Wyatt Earp says, "You never get rich off salary." That black folks believe that we'll get a job, it's going to pay us enough for us to be rich.
Hmm.
White folks believe that you invest your money to become wealthy, and that's when these rich dad, poor dad
But if
things
you
that
look at the laws, the tax laws in this
you,
country, and you look at how much easier it is for you once you become a business owner,
entrepreneur, yes, yes.
you benefit more. You have greater access to freedom in this country as a business owner than you do as some employee at a company. Because
Look,
because hold on. Because when you're an employee at a company, you get caught up in the machine and you start to
the security,
experience
yes.
socialism light and
Hmm.
how you're looking for somebody to take the load for you and like you need this nanny state to like cover all your important needs and all these things. Where when you're a business owner, you're responsible for all that. It's you have greater accountability as a business owner than you do as an employee. So what I'm getting at is that people should exercise more agency, because it appears to me that in the early years of America, in the first couple hundred years of America, when black people had their freedom, there was much more, there was a greater awareness of agency and how people had to get their own their own property and their own businesses and be self-reliant. And I think part of that was because back then a lot of people had to grow their own food, and they had to, that they were growing their own food. They
They were
grew enough.
responsible.
They had to go to the market and sell it. So, there was much more commerce. People were much more active in commerce back then than they are now. Whereas now, you have all these young people trapped in a gig economy, working at Amazon or working at Uber or any of the ride shares and delivering food to people. People are getting caught in these servant type of jobs, and they don't see it for what it really is. They think that, oh, I'm just going to do this for right now. Okay, but if you're just doing this for right now and you don't have any plan, 10 years from now, guess what? You can be doing this same thing you're doing, just doing this for right now.
Look, unless you're investing, your future will not change. It's just that simple.
So
The
so
other
bringing
problem,
it back to Kevin Samuels, this is the shit he was calling people on. Is like, you have these unrealistic expectations financially and socially,
socially too. Yes.
because in your relationships, you want to date somebody who's making a bunch of money, so that you can have this lavish lifestyle. But the problem is that these people that would be on his show, these people that would call in, or these people that he would engage with, they would get upset because all he was doing was holding a mirror up to them.
Look, um, I remember one time I was bouncing, and you know how it is when you're bouncing, and you got three or four women come up. Sometimes the most loudest, obnoxious one ain't the prettiest one. It's the one that like is kind of hanging with the pretty ones. And I told this young lady, I said, you don't have enough visual equity to be talking as loud as you are and to think that somebody's going to do this for you. It's like, what do you mean? I said, you're not pretty enough to act this way. They're the pretty ones. You're hanging with them. And that's what's happening, is that these people want the same treatment, but they don't have the same assets. I want to be treated like I'm this, but you don't have that to offer. And I'm sorry that the world is that shallow, that a pretty woman or a good-looking man it has it a little bit easier. They have it different. Nobody has it easier, but because you're attracted to somebody, will probably approach them before they approach you. So if that's the case, you need to depend on your own abilities. You need to make sure that you're providing for yourself. You need to be a whole person. And this is something that, again, we talked about in past podcasts. A lot of these half-ass people want a whole relationship, and that's not how it works. And so you get in this relationship, you haven't matured, you haven't developed, and all of a sudden I want to be rich, I want to be discovered, kind of like a singer. I just want to be discovered. I don't want to actually do anything. And then you get mad when you're in this relationship and you got 5 kids by a motherfucker you can't stand. That's because you want it to be taken care of. And now when that person dies or they decide to leave, you can't take care of yourself. You can't fend for yourself. Hell, look at OJ. This sounds crazy. I think he was paying Nicole like $83,000 a month, some crazy number like that. How can, and the reason was because he married her at 18, and they said she didn't have the ability to learn how to take care of herself. So that's what these women want. They want a football star. They want an actor. They want somebody to take care of them, and which is fine. But a lot of y'all ain't got shit to offer. Look, I'm sorry. Anybody can give somebody a kid. So you should be more. You should be a whole person. You should have, you should have your education. You should have your shit together. You should be a whole person too, because you can't depend on a man, but a man can't depend on a woman, no more to do what she's supposed to do. So when Kevin Samuels was pointing that shit out, everybody wants to attack him for hating black people, for being a sellout, for all these different things.
No, he's not. He's not.
Yeah, I get that. Here's another thing. You know, how come all of a sudden, like, I'll be watching Discovery Channel, and you got that own channel, the Oprah Winfrey Network. That network is super black. I mean, nothing but black shows on the Oprah, black documentaries, black reality shows, black love shows. All that shit is on the Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey wasn't doing no pro black shit before. It's when she decided to retire and her ratings started going down. All of a sudden, came back to the black folks. But Oprah was, like I said, she was the main one supporting Harvey Weinstein. Like, Harvey's not such a bad guy and all this other bullshit. But then on the flip side, she's leaving Neverland and all this shit and interviewing R. Kelly. It's like she's protecting the white pedophile. But then when it comes, like, for the record, Mike was never found guilty. You know what I'm saying? It's like she is literally creating distractions. She's literally creating distractions, so you don't want to prosecute these white motherfuckers. That's fucked up. What I'm trying to say is that it's really odd that black folks want to return to being black when they were white for years. That kind of thing. So these are the conversations that he was having. Kevin Samuels was the point out, like, hey, nah, you ain't a high value or whatever. He was saying that shit to people. And he went a little bit easier on some of the men, but that's because of systemic racism. A lot of these guys were brainwashed when they were 7, 8 years old, not realizing.
But look, he goes in on these betas. He goes in on the betas and let them know, like he said, you weak, and you're part of the problem. He would tell these guys that the problem is like you let these women run over you and get their way, and that's how we're in this situation that we are in now, because it's out of balance. And, as the Tao tells you, when life is out of balance, things run amok.
Well, you said some deep shit. Like, it's more of the women that were complaining about what he was saying. More of the men heard this shit and was like, God damn, that's me. Let me change how I am. Do you see the difference? Like, so some people search outward. Some people search inward. Most of the men, the reason that you ain't got a lot of men on there, yeah, I'm a beta. That's right. I sit down when I pee. That's because ain't no nigga gonna say that shit. Once you realize, like, okay, man, maybe this motherfucker's onto something. I reflect. But a lot of women, when you say they're doing something wrong, they attack you and call you names and shit like that, instead of saying, like, hey, you know what? Maybe I can improve. Hey, hey, Mr. Samuels, you brought something to my attention. I didn't even think about it like that. I guess I have been, I saw my mother get beat. I saw this happen, and that shit affected me, and I didn't think I was good enough. That kind of shit. Nobody, like I said, there are people that look inward and want to fix themselves, and other people who look outward. And you must be crazy for saying that shit to me, because I know I make 6 figures. Man, bitch, you ain't making no 6 figures, nigga. You must be counting the pennies.
That
nigga.
has nothing to do with, like, again,
after the decimal
you
point.
making money has nothing to do with this distorted view on reality that you have. Because, okay, so you made all that money and you don't read. You can't have a deep intellectual conversation. Like, everything. Tell me the books that you have on your bookshelf at home. No bookshelf? Okay, that's part of the problem. You have no depth.
But they're lying.
But you have no depth at all. So that's why you are the person that you are, is because you have this perception of what a person of an adult should be, of what success should be.
But you know as well as I do. Look, Roscoe, a lot of these people saying they making money, they ain't. Because most of the people that are making that type of money, they got a different view on life. They're like, okay,
they don't brag about it.
Yeah, like they're like, look, either they're trying to get more, or they're out there relaxing with their family, or they're raising their kids, they're raising their dogs, they're doing whatever the fuck they do, and they ain't got time to even listen to the show, or and I think one of the things that has fucked up a lot of is this reality show mentality, where you got people who are famous for doing nothing. 90 Day Fiance, Real Housewives of this, all that kind of shit, 16 and Pregnant, all these different shows, Kardashians, where these people are famous for just being alive. They really don't have a talent or a skill or anything to offer. And then you get offended when these celebrities talk and you find out they're dumb as fuck. You're like, well, damn, that's because they have a niche, and they found their niche. They made a shitload of money, and what it is there's a shitload of women out there, shitload of dudes out there that are entertained by this stupid shit. Now they're supporting you, and they got motherfucking advertisers. They're making their money. So, and nowadays, that's the crazy part. Anybody can produce content for YouTube. Anybody can make an album. You don't have to go through these companies to be somebody anymore. So next, you got Logan Paul and the other Paul. Paul out here boxing and being stupid, you know, with Pokemon cards, but them motherfuckers are, you know, $300-400 million. You know, from whatever they got. I know some crazy number. You know, that's the shit that we're talking. So you literally, if that's what you want to do, if you want to become rich and famous for being less than average, go right ahead. I appreciate, but you guys aren't. You're not even doing that. You're not teaching your kids. You know, I I think that nobody wants to admit that they can't do shit. that the shit that they have nothing to offer society, so they get mad when somebody calls them out on it. That's it. And so you get called out, but man, you shouldn't be responding to every. You know, don't respond. You know, if it's you, work on you, make you better. But I get it. You know, you want your little 15 seconds of fame. You want to get out there and be heard because you think of some kind of way that your message is so important. If it's so important, then
Okay,
hey, then start
this
your
is
own
what I'm going to
podcast.
say about that guy. Kevin Samuels raged against the machine. What machine am I talking about? He raged against the machine that has been exploiting people, that has been exploiting black people, the culture vultures, the people that would allow you to train AI software by taking all these self-indulgent pictures and putting them on
Man,
Instagram and Facebook
hey,
and in the facial recognition software that allows you to put these dog whiskers and cat whiskers on your face and
look,
like
my wife
when
just
you're
said,
taking hold on when you're taking these photos and you got the duck lips and all this stuff and you're putting
no,
like
I'm going there
fish
with you.
scales on your face and all this, hang on, so you're training artificial intelligent software on how humans behave. Little kids have the software in their computers at school. Little
Mm.
kids are teaching AI how to be human on a first and second grade, third grade level. And
And
so
it's growing with them.
and
Yeah,
then they take that information from the AI and then they put it into a setting where there's kids in junior high school. And then junior high kids are teaching this AI how to function on a junior high level. And then they take that and they extrapolate it to until what this AI represents is an adult human intelligence. And so people don't realize this because it's free. Oh, it's free, so it's harmless. You dummy, it's not harmless. Like you
you're
are a whore giving away pussy for free and you don't realize it. But this is the problem. What he was raging against was these people that would actually argue against you why you shouldn't have privacy, why you should give away your privacy. Now, a person like that is in a sunken place and don't realize that they are so willfully ignorant that they are arguing against you on why you shouldn't be free, why you should have less freedom. Now, these are the same people, these scofflaws, that will just turn their nose up when you speak about having more freedom. And then the way that they argue with you is they say, well, why shouldn't I use Google Chrome? Like Google Chrome is great. Really? Do you know how much of your information is farming and selling to third party data mining companies? Listen, just use a more discreet browser. Why? Why should I do that? I mean, it's just an internet browser. That's the problem. Because okay, when the internet started back in the 90s, when it was like starting available to the public,
Lycos.
there was so many people that would just create their own email services. There were email services all over the place. You had Angel Fire, people that were like building their own websites. There was this cypherpunk DIY mentality that everybody had. And all these people that were doing this took the initiative. It wasn't hard to do. It just took some inertia, energy to do this. But people are so lazy. They want to hand over the heavy lifting to other people to do shit for them. So when it all comes down, some people will suffer because of their ignorance. And then some people will suffer because of their laziness. But what's horrible is that there's people suffering for both of those reasons. So
You
what I'm
can't be
talking about,
both.
right.
You can't be both.
But this is the thing though. These people that hate him, that hate Kevin Samuels, they are of a certain ilk. They are of a certain type that they're what Alex Haley would refer to in the book Roots as the Slatey people. Okay? All right. So this is a type of person that they're what they would call the useless eaters, because there's no provocative type of thinking. They want to make enough money to look as good as the next person, and to whatever the latest trend, they want to be that. They want to reflect
It's all
that.
about fashion. No substance, no function.
Go ahead, man. I'm gonna rip for a minute. Go ahead. You can go.
Nah, it's not that. It's just the fact that what you were talking about with this AI, and people think this shit's a joke. But my wife commented, she says, "You really don't see that many Asian people on TikTok." I said, "Baby, that's because TikTok is from China." About a year and a half ago, we talked about this on the podcast. Who owns TikTok and why TikTok is illegal in its home country? It's illegal in China.
But
Literally
no, but even in the United States, you don't see a lot of Asian people on TikTok.
Yeah, and that's because they know where it comes from. They know about this stuff. So they're like, look, I think the Asian people as a whole have a way of communicating their goals to each other better than black people do. Because I get it. Remember when the people from China boycotted Prada because of they boycotted Prada. Now black folks try to boycott Gucci, but you still have black celebrities buying it and wearing it. So I just think that when Asians have a common goal, they agree on the goal, and they agree on when we boycott, we're gonna boycott. And so that's that whole mentality. That's something that these people are telling us that we got to get.
Well, but here's why they succeed. Like, it's a double-edged sword. It's the peasant mentality, and it's a shame, right? Shame and honor, and more so like the Jews, not so much the honor, but more so the shame. They cover each other in shame glaze. And that's how they keep each other in line that way. That's good, definitely. And that's bad. But to the benefit is that how they show a little more solidarity in that way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, they shop in the communities. $1 a turn, like 10 times in the Jewish community, 11 times in the Asian community. But it'll spend once or twice in the black community. That's a thing. And we talked about it. That's why. Look, the reason we picked Kevin Samuels is because, like I said, like my brother was saying, is that he
didn't pull any punches. He just shot straight. And people, listen, the reason why people didn't like that is because we're in this age now where, you have to watch what you say. You have to be careful. These women, they're all queens, and you got to kiss their ass, and you got to give them what they want. And no. Hold on. Also, you got motherfuckers running around saying trust all women. Really? Trust all women, including Ghislaine Maxwell? Trust her too? Jada Pinkett, Abramoff, the fucking witch that was on the Microsoft commercials. Trust her too? Trust these motherfuckers? Fuck that. No, man. Amber Heard, trust her too? Get the fuck out of here. That shit with the Johnny Depp court trials, man. Listen, that is the portrait of a sociopath, and I'm talking about Amber Heard, not Johnny Depp.
Slow down. We need to comment on that. See, there's a problem with that relationship. We get that, but the problem is, me as a black man, I've dated at least 3 women like that. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes the reason black folks are
black women ain't gonna shit in your bed though.
No, I didn't say that part. I'm talking about the hitting and saying that you hit them when you didn't, that kind of shit. I was referring to that.
Yeah, that's a sociopath.
Yeah, and so the point.
That's manipulation.
Yes, the point I'm making is that sometimes the reason the black community is so forgiving is because we've dealt with that so much in our culture. Like, okay, the manipulation. And something else that me and you talk about off the air, but we mentioned on the air very briefly. Okay. Some of these East Coast motherfuckers drive me crazy, especially the women. The women will drive you. You're such a narcissist. You're a narcissist. How does me being a narcissist affect you? It only affects you is if you fall in love with me and you let me do this bullshit to you, or you sit here and submit to the bullshit. If you know there's nothing wrong with self-love. It's the problem when you project fucked up shit on other people, and there's not even a problem with it because if that other person accepts it and doesn't love themselves enough to leave. But that's the big thing. She's my mother's a narcissist. You're a narcissist. I'm like, people have called me a narcissist before. That don't bother me.
But see, here's the thing though. women should hold themselves to a higher standard than men do. And
That's how
what,
it's always been. They're
but
more divine.
yes, but in this race to do everything that a man can do,
Equally. Yes, yes.
they have abandoned that grace. Not all of them, but
Yep, yeah.
there's a good bit of them that have abandoned their grace in for in you know to in they have abandoned their grace to
Indulge
be
society. Yes.
more to have more what they think is freedom.
Look, women are naturally better than men. That's how it's supposed to be. That's how and we want them to raise our kids because you're the first teachers. We want them to, they're special. So that's why we have these expectations. Now, don't get me wrong. Men have manipulated women. Men have, done some fucked up shit with society where we're in a better position. I dig that. So let's not pretend like that didn't happen. We discuss racism. We got to discuss sexism and all these other isms. I get that, but the deep shit my brother was saying earlier is that you're the people that just attacked Dave Chappelle. Like, what you attacked this motherfucker to bring attention to what? That's not that wasn't your message. You had a fake knife on you, gun. I attacked him to bring attention to my homeless grandmother. No, you didn't.
Okay.
You did that for celebrity.
Hold on. We're gonna park that for a second. We're gonna come right back to that for just a second because there's a little more I wanted to talk about with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation because that is something that we've seen before. We've actually seen these things before in relationships with people that we know, and
yep.
and there's been friends of ours that have dated crazy people, men and women, and this manipulation. This is not something that is specific to race. Like I've seen this across the board, crazy people manipulating good people, and the problem is that crazy person is using either their influence, their outward appearance,
Sexuality, sex. Don't forget
all
sex.
of these things to, and I'm not talking about with that direct person that they're hurting. I'm talking about with the observers, with the rest of the world. So to get leverage and show that, hey, I'm in the right, even though that motherfucker is a raging narcissist / sociopath. And so these people are getting away with murder literally sometimes because they cry wolf.
And they guilt you. They make you feel guilty about this. Or okay, sometimes being from a different community, you can spot shit right away. And my homeboy, he had a friend, my boy Tony. So one of his friends was going through something, and I'm like, and they were talking about his wife is from Maryland, D.C. I'm like, oh, she like black dudes. He's like, no, she don't. Come back like 6 months later, like, hey, she used to date 3 black dudes. Like, yeah, she's from the D.C. area.
Yeah.
I spotted some cues by the way she did and said certain things. I'm like, oh yeah, she's been yeah. She likes the BBC. Like I don't know if she still does, but she did at one point. But that's because you observe certain behaviors and you can recognize when people say certain words what they're really saying. You got connotation and denotation. Denotation is the dictionary. Connotation is what is assumed. But you got to understand when people use language, they're saying they're only speaking to certain people sometimes, or somebody who recognizes something can pick that up. So you recognize what that person. Oh yeah, she's gonna drive that dude crazy. Sure enough, she drove that man crazy during a divorce. But this goes back to what you were saying about outward appearance. He thought that she was so pretty that she was all out of his level. He thought he was winning, so he did everything to keep her, to the detriment of himself.
He put the pussy on a pedestal.
On a pedestal, yes. And so also there's a lot of terms that we use like oh man, he's babysitting the pussy, and you're like, what does that mean? That means that he's pretending to be her friend because he knows she's in a relationship. And the second that relationship has a problem, he's going to become not just a friend. He's going to become either a fucker or a lover or something else because he doesn't have the ability to approach her in that manner. Or she shot him down. Or the other thing that a lot of people do is I'm inebriated. So you got a homegirl and you got a dude that's her. They know each other for years, right? You got a chick and a dude. They've been friends for years. You know, he doesn't have the heart to make a move on him, but the one time he's drunk, he has one drink, all of a sudden he shoots his shot. Now, he's not really inebriated, but he can use the alcohol as an excuse because so if she says yes, okay, great, we're going forward. But if she says no, he can blame his behavior on the alcohol. That he has a built-in excuse. He has a reason that he can retract like a turtle. And so these are manipulations. All we're trying to do is point out that people use all kinds of manipulations to get what they want. Now, it's great when it's mutual, when both people like each other in the same fashion, and then it turns into a healthy relationship. You get married, you have kids, and you live happily ever after. If that's your goal, but a lot of times you get married and have kids, and you're miserable. And then next thing you know, you ruin somebody's life. That's the whole reason that we talk about Will Smith and Jada. Jada keeps saying she didn't want to have kids. Jada keeps saying I was mad because I was pregnant. And my mother and Will are the ones who insisted that I get married. My mother thought it'd be a good idea. I'm like, golly, you really think that's fit for public consumption? You really think that's something that people should be hearing? And don't get me wrong. The reason I say that is because many times we do have problems in our relationship, but we can fix them in house, and then we move on to life, and everything's great, hopefully. But there's no reason to let people into your house like that. There's no reason for you to share certain things unless you're trying to get somebody to come over to your side. Unless you're trying to get somebody to see your point of view. And I've told you about women like this. I call them assholes. Not assholes, assholes. Because all they're doing is asking you a question to see if you agree with them. They're searching for somebody. They're searching for somebody to agree, not searching for answers. They're not searching for how to fix something or, hey, I have a problem with this. And
a person like that likes to they look for echo chambers.
Yeah, that's all they want, bro. They want a bunch of people, and that's part of that is part of this society. Now, before it was exclusive to just a few people, but now that's a whole society. People who are conservative, they watch Fox because they want somebody to agree with them. People that are liberal, they watch CNN because they want to hear the liberal news. Instead, they don't want the truth. When we grew up, the news told you what it was, and you decided how you felt about it. It's not like that anymore. They're telling you how to think, and so you have these major manipulators in media, but you got manipulators in your house.
But see, CNN is like another branch of the government. They are pretty much the Ministry of Information. And there was a recent news story a couple of days ago how there's a new government office called the Department of Disinformation. Yeah, it's a real thing. You can look it up.
That's crazy. That's some fucking KGB shit.
That's some 1984 George Orwell shit. Because in that book, there was a country called Oceania. And Oceania had the Ministry of Information. And so they had these slogans that freedom is slavery. Yeah, they had like slogans like that. Freedom is slavery and war is truth.
Look, when you talk about the Marshmallow Mafia, what you're talking about are these softies, these sissies, these weakies, these people. And don't get me wrong, society can be very mean, but you're talking about people who are trying to say that your struggle is the same as mine.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about, when I say the Marshmallow Mafia, that's the gay mafia.
I know that.
Okay, so
that's what I meant. The struggle. Your struggle is not the same as mine.
So
stop trying to equate everything.
Check this out. Dave Chappelle is a black comedian, well known. He sells out shows everywhere.
He's at the top right now. Yes.
This guy was hosting a special for Netflix at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. Now, if you have ever went out in Los Angeles to a nightclub, to a concert, to any entertainment venue, you will know that it is very exclusive. It's hard to get in. Now, yes, I'm not talking about a hole in the wall or some dive bar. No. I'm talking about a place that's going to have a long ass line where you need tickets to get in. That's another thing about LA. Everybody loves to stand in line for get stupid shit like a hot dog. I'm like, fuck out of here with that stupid shit.
Yeah, they want to be seen in line. Yeah,
yes. So
yeah, I dig it.
Crazy thing is that Dave Chappelle had this show at the Hollywood Bowl, and of course there's going to be security checking people when they come in, right? One of the things about a Dave Chappelle show is that they always take your cell phones.
Yes, they take your cell phones. Yep, that's deep.
Right. And so this guy that attacked him on stage Monday night, I think it was, he attacked him on stage, and this dude had a weapon on him. It looks like a gun, and it has a projectile knife that fires out of the barrel. This dude was homeless. What did I tell you, man? When I said, before I even saw this guy, I said, I bet you this dude is homeless and is somebody that these rich gay people that Dave Chappelle pissed off in Hollywood hired to get at him and prove the point that we can touch you. Listen, after they beat the shit out of this guy for attacking Dave, who had pretty good takedown defense, I'll say that. This guy, they took a photo of him, and they took a photo of him being loaded onto the stretcher. His elbow was broken out of the socket and bent in the opposite way, right? I saw he had black painted fingernails. He had a shitty haircut. He had shitty clothes on that looked like a homeless person would wear. And I looked at this guy, and I said, oh, yeah. He is homeless. He had this speed knot, this wound on his head. It's not on his head. It was his swollen where they kicked him. It had swollen so much it changed his hairline. So, but check this out. Check this out. So I'm looking at this cat. As soon as I looked at that photograph, I said that validates what I was saying about they hired some homeless, no-name kid with with no connections really to the world. Somebody who lives in a vacuum, and we can take him and slowly create a backstory, and so that if anything happens, well, then there's a trail. He has this song about Dave Chappelle that he recorded in 2020. Now, this was after Dave was already pissing people off, but because in 2020, that's when he had that. That was when he had the George Floyd Netflix or the free comedy special that he put online. Okay.
Yeah.
And then he started touring again.
It was called 8 minutes and 15 seconds, whatever it was.
Yes. But what he was doing though before that, he had that show he recorded in Atlanta where he had that green janitor suit on.
Yep.
And
like a flight suit.
That shit was fucking hilarious. But he was going in on the ridiculous nature of these people who want to be politically correct. So he was pissing off all these people, these rich, powerful people in Hollywood that are gay, that have money and power. And they're pushing agenda. They have always pushed these agendas. And I see these agendas in movies with forced inclusion in areas where it's not welcome or needed. And so every show on TV now has a gay character or a gay love scene or a gay couple or something like that on every major network, every major show, all the movies. They're in there. They keep forcing it in there because then you have this whole transgender situation, which represents such a small portion, like 1/100th of the population, of the American population, right?
It's less than that.
It's less than that. But here's the thing, though. They keep pushing this because behind this, the money behind this, but see, it's not about these people just being gay. No. The people that you know that are gay, that are homosexuals, those people are the ones that are being used. The same way that the black female lesbians that started Black Lives Matter, they were basically using the groundswell of anger that was created behind the deaths associated with police brutality. They just used that to make millions of dollars and buy themselves some very expensive homes. But listen, the point I'm getting at is that same type of manipulation has been used with gay people by richer, wealthier gay people that want to push social Marxism. Look. And so, hold on, man. I'm going somewhere with this. So then what you have is the culmination of this, them showing their hand by having this sloppy assassin show up at Dave Chappelle's show. This is the crazy part about all this, is that This guy got into the show with a
No
weapon,
problem.
no
Yes, come on.
problems, and he got all the way up to the
To the
front
front row.
onto the stage. Okay? And the crazy part about this is that when you see somebody, Joe Rogan said this also. He said, when you see somebody commit a crime and there's evidence of this person committing a crime and there is no contest, there's no dispute about how the crime was committed, how is this person not being properly prosecuted? How come this person is not being properly charged?
He got charged with 4 misdemeanors. No, how is he not charged with a felony?
This is hold on. This is California. Gun, weapons, any type of like major like weapon crimes are prosecuted with the harshest of penalties.
The fact that he got 4 misdemeanors tells you something right there.
That tells you that the gay mafia is in the DA's office in Los Angeles, okay? That the gay mafia was behind grooming this kid to, one, make the song and then go after Dave Chappelle and attack him. All because Dave Chappelle has been flagrant in his defiance of this hypocrisy.
Yeah.
No, of the hypocrisy of not the ground troops, but the brass behind the LGBTQ movement. Because it is not these people that work at jobs with you, the people you may see at streets, the people that you see waving the flags or they got them on their cars, it's not those people. It's the old money behind this that hangs out in Europe. No, that goes to these islands where they have all the little fuckboys that are underage and barely above age. These people were a part of the King credit scandal. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. The gay mafia ran the King credit scandal. Hold on, I'm going somewhere because these people, this gay mafia, they are running pedophile rings on the dark web all over the planet and all up in Thailand with the lady boys. Okay? They're everywhere. They're in the Cub Scouts. They run that shit.
They're trying to normalize this shit. So
they want to normalize it. So this is what we're talking about. The Marshmallow Mafia is part of changing laws in California to make it easier for pedophiles to have access to underage people. Okay? To have less harsh prosecution for underage people. It's about them getting access to judges to prosecute and make laws that are more amenable to a pedophile gay lifestyle. So when I tell you, man, like, there's a gay mafia. Oh, for real. It's for real, for real. This Marshmallow Mafia is real. But what this thing is, it's so in your periphery that nobody dares to turn to look at it. It's like this song Mobb Deep had. There's no such thing as halfway crooks. Scared to look. You're shook.
You're just shook.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, like, this is the thing that nobody wants you to fucking talk about. It's like the way the UFO cover-up was suppressed for so many fucking years by the United States government. They knew about it. You would hear shit about it. The same thing with this gay fucking mafia and their pedophile rings. They have assassinations. These motherfuckers, dude, I'm telling you, dude, like, you think it's a game. Motherfucking Jack Ruby was a gay dude. And that motherfucker was part of the Kennedy assassination.
Look, here's the thing. When people hint at it, when people try to talk about it, that's what makes comedians are special, because they can say shit that nobody else can say, and you laugh at it. But it's also meant to make you wake up. Cat Williams talked about that shit on 2 or 3 of them.
100%.
Yes, he talks about Opie Cunningham. He's talking about going to a Hollywood party and seeing Ron Howard having sex with another man. He talks about going to a Hollywood party. He's like, man, they do the drugs right in front of you. He's like, look, I know it's hard to believe, but not all black folks were raised around drugs. So you get to a party and you see somebody snort cocaine off a hooker, and you're like, ah, damn, for real? So you're not even going in the bathroom and hiding the shit anymore. So Cat Williams talks about the shit. He tells you a little bit in some of those older comedy specials, and you laugh and you chuckle. But what he's telling you is there is some kind of gay mafia. These motherfuckers are
Okay.
powerful.
In New Orleans at Mardi Gras, the king of the Mardi Gras, the deity of the Mardi Gras is Bacchus. Okay? And Bacchus is part of this whole party and revelry, right? And this goes back to Roman times. And there were these like Caligula, Nero type of crazy orgiastic parties, all right? And all this stuff is tied into dark magic. So you have this, what they call in California, the LHP, the left hand path. And that controls the Ninth Circuit Court in Los Angeles. And it's related to the movie, film, and music industry. So what you have with this Marshmallow Mafia is this cross section of money, power, sex trafficking, and dark witchcraft. And people really don't put the pieces together until there's an event that draws your attention to it. That shows, oh, there is a cross section here of things going on.
Yeah. Okay, my wife went to LA a little bit ago, about 2 years ago, but right before COVID, her and her homegirl, they're walking down the street, and a motherfucker hit them up about Scientology. Like literally, they're out there. You want to join Scientology? That crazy shit. Now, the reason I bring that up is because let's discuss the Will Smith thing. So, old boy comes out and says, like, hey, you do realize Will and Jada were Scientologists. Now, Jada was hardcore into it. Will was just a little bit into it. But that slapping of your opponent is an exercise they do in Scientology. Like literally, they bring people in a room and let them slap each other so you could humiliate your adversary. So, with old boy saying that shit, you realize that sometimes when you see this shit is a ritual going on right in front of you. Like nobody wants to understand that shit. This if that was a Scientology ritual, the rest of us who ain't initiated, we wouldn't recognize that shit. You feel me? We won't. But that's the kind of shit that goes on in LA all the time. There's a lot of cross sectors of society that we don't get. That LA that when you're in a major city with that many people, like if I live in Nebraska, you probably got 3 Scientologists in the whole state, but LA, you got thousands.
No, I don't believe that. There's more.
I'm just.
The King credit scandal went on under everybody's nose. So don't say shit like that. There's a lot more shit. There's so many secret societies in Nebraska, dude. It's ridiculous. And matter of fact, there's a lot of witchcraft that's been there for a long fucking time.
Yes.
There was that bookstore down in the old market. It was called the Antiquarian Bookstore. Man, there are so many books of magic in this bookstore. It was ridiculous, man.
They were used books, but hold it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm just saying Scientology got a foothold here. I ain't referring to the other shit because as well as I do, we've heard people tell us, "Hey, man, I was at Humboldt Park and I seen some shit." People are warning you, and you make fun of it. We joke because that can't be the case. Yes, these people hide in plain sight. Yes, they have a lot of money, and yes, they have a lot of influence. That's what made the whole Franklin Credit Union scandal so crazy because you have police chiefs, police officers, politicians, public figures, newscasters, and all these motherfuckers partaking in these kids. And just because Larry King went to jail, so you think again, this is something they bring up in the documentary is that how the pimp goes to jail, but the Johns never get arrested. So who are these Johns, these ones who are using these little kids, where did they go? Because they didn't get arrested. You arrest one man, this thing doesn't stop. Those people are still on the outside and somebody's going to take his place. That's what we're referring to with all this shit. You arrest one person, yeah, man, he was the one bringing little kids to these people. But the people still have a desire for that shit, and that shit didn't go anywhere. What the fuck are they doing? I just saw a video about Machine Gun Kelly and his girlfriend, old girl from Transformers. Oh yeah, we drink each other's blood. This shit is coming out more and more, where these people are feeling more comfortable saying this shit, and you laugh like, oh, they're just weird Hollywood types. There's more to that shit. These people worship different deities than you worship. And that's what the whole problem is. We use this word God and we use it interchangeably with all these different shit, not realizing what he calls God and what she calls God ain't the same God that you're referring to. That shit right there is a major problem.
Yeah, 100%. But everybody puts this they project their feelings and their hopes and aspirations onto strangers that they don't know.
Nope.
And
they admire these people though, but they don't know them.
well, I mean, okay, you have some people. I've been in long distance relationships before, and
Yeah.
I was telling this woman about this at dinner the other day. I had a dinner with some clients and shit, and so I was telling them about this long distance relationship that I was in, and the woman asked me, she was like, "Did you make it more than it was? Did you like have this false idea about what the relationship was?" And I'm like, "No, not at all." I said, "But I'm glad you brought that up because people do that, you know." And people often, like, okay, you take art for example. So you can make a piece of art
Its
and
value, their value can vary.
but a person can have a completely different idea about the intent behind the art. And they'll create this tableau of ideas or imagery about how it affected them and like what it does. And I'm like, that's cool. I didn't make it to be that, but it's cool that it moved you in that way. So it just
Yeah,
goes to show
interpretation is
that
important.
people will project their all this stuff, all their ideas onto you. You don't. It doesn't have to be an artwork. It can just be you as a person because they see you and they might put you on a pedestal to be XYZ.
But that was the same deal with Kevin Samuels. He represented what these people had a problem with.
Mm-hmm.
So they project onto that dude. Hey, you said some deep shit, Roscoe. Run back something we both were discussing. So Dave Chappelle does not live in Hollywood, right?
Ohio.
Yeah, he literally rages against. He lives in Ohio, big celebrity. Netflix done paid this man over $100 million. So how in the world does a celebrity get attacked and they don't make it a felony? I mean, I want people to hear that this man was charged with 4 misdemeanors. Like literally stalking somebody in L.A. is a crime. They've had to going back to John Lennon, going back to the old girl from Mark and Mindy. These people were killed by stalkers. How is this man not a stalker? How is he not charged with felony stalking, where he literally wrote a song about Dave Chappelle 2 years ago, which makes you think, going back to what you were saying, that trust me, you mean to tell me that this crazy, whatever you want to call it, because he's a Trump supporter too. That was not, well, you know, Dave Chappelle talks against Trump, but this guy was a Trump supporter. So you mean to tell me that these people didn't see this motherfucker's text messages? They didn't see what he was posting on these message boards, and this is the ideal candidate. You mean to tell me that? And so for 2 years, because if coronavirus hadn't happened, this motherfucker probably would have done that shit 2 years ago. Talking about the LA, he talks about this in depth. How did he know Dave was gonna be at the LA Bowl? You know, literally, this motherfucker talks about this shit. So how can you say that they didn't find the ideal candidate? A little homeless kid down on his luck going through some shit? Or how do you know they just didn't influence him by sending him texts pretending to be lesbian or whatever, and like, hey man, shit, that motherfucker, he needs his ass kicked. But all I'm simply saying is, how did this motherfucker not get charged with stalking Dave Chappelle? How did this motherfucker not get charged with something, with some kind of felony something? 4 misdemeanors. So that means this kid's going to be out of jail right away. Now, you could say that maybe he got his punishment when he got stomped. That's not how justice works. This motherfucker jumped up on stage, attacked a celebrity in the mecca of celebrities. You know, this place is built on celebrity and stars and all this. And you mean to tell me that you only charged him with 4 misdemeanors? Nah, man. That means that either that prosecutor agrees with this guy's views, or that prosecutor doesn't like Dave Chappelle. Like, we really don't want that motherfucker here. So this shit happening, like you said, it was by design. There's no way that man should not get some kind of felony stalking charge or get 15, 16 years or something. So he won't do that shit no more. No, So I just want, sometimes when shit's it's so obvious that needs to be pointed out. How do you only get 4 misdemeanors when you attack a celebrity on stage? You know what I'm saying? Literally. And even when it goes down, you see Dave's security slip and fall. Like, okay, them niggas need to be fired right away. but
check it out. Saying. So gay mafia is not a term used publicly or within polite company.
Nope.
It's not something we're supposed to talk about.
But we are.
To do so is to engage in homophobia or paranoia, is
It's like anti-Semitism. They want
That's
you
perfect.
can't you
Perfect
can't speak
analogy.
out. Yeah, you can't speak out against them at all.
Right. By
Like
throwing that
literally
word out, just like conspiracy theorists, you already put a wet blanket on any speculation, right? So
any intelligent conversation.
check this out. There's a magazine. It was called Spy Magazine that was out in the 90s. And there's back issues online. You can read an article from the 1990, was a 1995 issue, and it was on the Hollywood gay mafia, and it's on page 44. And
Oh, wow.
so it talks about more than half of the leading power brokers in Hollywood are Jewish, and about a third of them are homosexual. David Geffen, Ray Stark, Calvin Klein, Aaron Spelling, Steve Tisch, Barry Diller, and Sandy Gallen. This creates an atmosphere conducive to pushing gay rights and to that kind of keeps away gay bashing. In his 1999 book, Tabloid Baby, Bert Kearns, former managing editor for the TV show A Current Affair and Hard Copy, writes about the clash between the Australian tabloid newspaper and Fox's head at the time, Barry Diller, and his Velvet Mafia. Barry Diller, to the Australians, were homophobic ruffians. So to Diller, he thought these Australians were like these rednecks that hated gay people. And Hollywood was a place where untold secrets unfolded in the back of limousines and behind the walls of cloistered mansions where rubber sheets covered priceless bedspreads. The manly men from down under had little reverence for the pampered poobahs of Screenland and the secrets they held. They laughed at Diller and his fancy pants friends. The Aussies regarded Barry Diller and his young male executives to be gay, and the Aussies referred to the gays as poofters. Diller hated A Current Affair. Yeah, he quotes in there and he says, it was a phone conversation. He said A Current Affair planned to do a story claiming that homosexual Cary Grant was straight. Their ad, written by Greg Sneed, said, "Cary Grant, no more fairy tales." Then Barry Diller called in and he said, "The word fairy makes my blood boil." Barry Diller canceled the entire month of A Current Affairs TV guide ads and demanded to see copies of every promotional item Greg Sneed had written in the past 2 years. Kearns hired homosexual Paul Nichols to direct FUNY, as in Fuck You New York. Paul couldn't understand using a heterosexual funny bit with a beautiful woman doing a U.S. weather map while wearing a spandex miniskirt. Gordon Elliott read his script as a sportscaster on the show. Okay, so basically there was a guy that was being a sportscaster, and he was being he's doing it, reading his script in an effeminate voice, right? But Paul got mad and walked out of the control room. Everything stopped until Elliott agreed to read it straight. Spy Magazine published Mark Ebner's controversial essay on the gay mafia in its June 1995 issue. For years afterwards, Ebner was blackballed in Hollywood. It was not until about 1999 that he started selling scripts again.
It didn't work.
Wow. As in a March 7, 2000 NewYorkPress.com article, he said, "I'm not all surprised to read that Hollywood is dominated by a velvet mafia of rich homosexuals who demand sexual favors in return for work in movies. In fact, I would have been surprised if it were the other way around. Those old Mittel Europa Jews who ran Tinseltown in its heyday established the casting couch practice long ago. But as they say, at least they did it with style and with the opposite sex."
Yeah, you doing some wrong shit. Ain't nobody saying nothing. Then them people not saying nothing. You need to probably cut them people too.
And you need to continue to rage against the machine in the most punk rock way that you can muster. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.